E como mai ikena hale. Welcome to this sacred place.
I remember everything happening so quickly. I left for boot camp, I was in training.
Uncle Sam thought I was having too much fun on the beach, and so I was drafted in 1966. I volunteered to go into combat. Within a month, I was on my way to Vietnam.
I was shown to my barracks, and I looked around the room and I thought, this is it. This is my life now.
We have a long history of Native veterans, more than any other people.
My brother was in the Air Force.
4 generations in the United States Marine Corps.
And my son was in the Navy after me.
My grandfather was a Coast Guard officer.
I am the first veteran of my family.
I think it's really important to challenge the stereotype of what a Native veteran is.
It was either serve or be a drug dealer.
Wanted to go to college, but didn't have the money.
Not everyone had that choice.
Sometimes it feels really romanticized when the costs of war are really high.
I always thought that I could transfer some of my luck to my sons. The day my son was killed, he was carrying this flag in combat. That was hard to accept.
We are the First Nation, and we will defend our land, no matter what.
I feel like I'm just doing what's right or what needs to be done, or maybe what I feel I'm called to do.
The skills of being a good soldier is something you learn. But to be a good warrior, it's something deeper than that. It's about your inner spirit, what things are important to you to the point that you will fight for them.
It's something that I feel pumping through my veins, and it's what I breathe and live every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the State of Native American Veterans. We are honored and privileged to host this event today in advance of Native American Heritage Month, often referred to as American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month. It's a time where we can come together and celebrate our rich and diverse cultures, acknowledge the contributions of the Native people, and educate ourselves and each other to create awareness about the unique challenges of our Native American people and the way that they have conquered and overcome those challenges as tribal citizens. So thank you for joining us today. It's a thrill to be in partnership with Hesperus, Rocky Boy Veterans Center, the Dine Nazba Partnership, and a special guest from the Department of Veterans Affairs. If you'll go to the next slide, please. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you. If you have some exciting things that we'd love to share, please join us on social media at Combined Arms US. We want to hear all of the exciting parts and things that you love about this event. And of course, always use the hashtag Native American Heritage Month, which begins on November 1st. If you go to the next slide, I am just your host today. My name is Kelly Finn Stormer. I'm the Executive Director of the Combined Arms Institute, a Navy veteran, and it is my privilege and honor to uplift the voices of others as we celebrate and honor and acknowledge the contributions of our Native American veterans today. If you go to the next slide, just a little bit about Combined Arms. We are on a mission to unite the community and accelerate the impact of veterans and military families. Again, we are here to uplift the voices and bring people together to really celebrate the contributions of others. And so it's my privilege to serve as your host today. Again, thank you for making the time. We want to begin, if you'll go to the next slide, please, by sharing some really exciting things. Again, next month is all about our veterans and military families and our Appreciation Month, of course, with upcoming Veterans Day and in partnership to celebrate the contributions of our Native Americans. And so thanks for making the time for that. We do have an upcoming education committee convening. So we always like to talk about our upcoming observances and events as we think and plan for those opportunities for our education partners that have joined us today. Also, just as a reminder to everyone, we'd love to hear your feedback and the things that we love. So we have this little QR code. We'll show it again at the end. But just tell us what you liked about the event and how we can best support you going forward. Your feedback is absolutely critical to that. So I'm going to kick it off right away and begin with our first panelist. We're so excited that she was able to make the time to join us today. The Department of Veterans Affairs appointed their first ever advisory committee in 2021 on tribal and Indian affairs on October 4th. This committee is going to provide advice and guidance to the VA Secretary on all matters relating to Indian tribes, tribal organizations, Native Hawaiian organizations, and Native American veterans. We are absolutely thrilled to have Stephanie Birdwell, the director of the VA Office of Tribal and Government Relations, with us today. So thank you, Stephanie, for joining us and for sharing a little insight about where this committee is headed. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the audience here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm honored to be with you. I also want to thank, of course, our veterans for your service and sacrifice, and we're looking forward to November being Native American Heritage Month, and also Veterans Day, which is a real day of, I think, celebration and recognition for our veterans and for their families who supported them as well. So I'm going to try to focus on the Tribal Advisory Committee. I know we have a limited amount of time, and then afterwards I'm going to have to jump to another kind of concurrent activity going on. But we'll go ahead, and I just want to mention too, on these slides, when the office was first established, I'll give you a little bit of background about the office within the VA, and then I'll also try to, again, focus on the TAC. But it was important early on that we include imagery of people and places that we knew. We didn't want to just include, stock photographs and so on. So all the pictures in our slide deck presentations all represent different folks and veterans across Indian country doing good work. You'll see that the gentleman at the bottom, those gentlemen are from Colville, and I think also Swinomish in the Pacific Northwest, and they've worked as tribal veterans representatives, helping vets with their claims and with other just kind of day-to-day issues that may come about. If you see the picture of the gate there, the VA has a cemetery grant that it offers to state governments, but also to tribal governments. And so that's an image of the Yurok Veterans Cemetery. It was constructed with VA provided dollars through Congress. And then, of course, there's a color guard. And then again, so any picture that we ever get questioned about, we always like to be able to tell or share what the story is behind that. So next slide. Okay, and it's coming in a little blurry. I don't know if anyone else is seeing that. Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Again, and I'll pick up the pace here too. The Office of Tribal Government Relations, we're part of the Office of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs. At the VA, we're not part of any one of the 3 VA administrations. I have a colleague that works with state departments of Veterans Affairs, and then our team works, of course, with tribal governments. We have an Assistant Secretary of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs. Her name is Kayla Williams, who was also very active, of course, in the veterans community prior to her appointment. And then we focus on 3 areas to help implement the VA's tribal consultation policy. Very broadly stated, we facilitate increased access to care and benefits for veterans living in Indian country, but also we're working with our urban community as well. And then also to promote what we call economic sustainability for veterans and Native veterans living in Indian country and also urban areas with the philosophy that for veterans who are connected to the services and benefits that they've earned, that helps stabilize their situation as well as their family and the entire community. Next slide. It's not very high tech, but I think it gets the point across. Here's the map of our team out west in the green. Terry Bentley is out of Oregon, and she works with all of the tribes. In the green, of course, there are 574 federally recognized tribes. 229 of them are located in Alaska. So she has a big portfolio. Of course, we are sort of a force multiplier. We have good working relationships with VA leadership from all 3 administrations. So it's not like we're out there just doing the work that we do on our own. And then Homina Pewicki is based in the Southwest. She works with the tribes in the Four Corners states. And Terry, I should mention, is Karuk. Homina is, and Terry has worked for the VA, I believe, for going on 35 years now. Homina is Hopi. Then in the upper Midwest, the states in yellow, Peter Vicaire is a Marine, and he works with tribes in the Northern Plains, upper Midwest, and the Northeastern United States. Peter is actually Micmac, and he is from Maine. Clay Ward is based out of the DC office, and he's a citizen of the Choctaw Nation. And then myself, I'm currently out of Oklahoma City. Oh, hello, I see we have someone who, the folks are commenting. It's good to see you all. And then Mary Cully, my colleague, who is based in Oklahoma City, works with tribes in the Southern Plains and the Southeastern United States. And Mary, I am a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. And then Mary is Seminole, but she also has Muskogee Creek heritage. Next slide. I know I'm taking up time here, so try to be efficient. There is a lot that's been going on with respect to Native veterans in recent legislation. So the first bullet, OMB in January directed all agencies to evaluate their tribal consultation policies and submit a plan for how the agencies would revise or conduct tribal consultation. VA's consultation policy was established in February of 2011, so it has not been revised in a decade, but the agency has engaged in tribal consultation annually since that time. With the legislation that created the VA Advisory Committee, it identifies certain responsibilities for tribal consultation on the part of that committee. So that was really a good opportunity for VA to pull its tribal consultation policy and assess it and really see what role the TAC, as we call it for short, will play with regard to tribal consultation. Consultation was held, tribal consultation was held back in April, and there's a deadline this week to submit an update to OMB, the President's Budget Office, and explain where VA is on revising that policy. The VA Advisory Committee, and I'll touch base on a few other things following this. It was again established by statute. It's a 15-member committee. 12 representatives come from the historic Indian Health Service areas. There is one Native Hawaiian representative and one representative from the urban Indian organizations and one at large. It is a requirement that at least half of the committee be comprised of veterans, and it will serve to improve tribal engagement and consultation, support the nation-to-nation relationship, and serve to uphold treaty and trust obligations the United States has with tribal governments. So the nominees, the packages, if you will, were reviewed by an independent group within VA. So they weren't reviewed by myself. And then recommendations were sent forward to the VA secretary. And then he made final selections. I believe it was around October 4th. And I'll just mention, there was also a press release that went out about this, the committee, which again, we're very excited about. So but also before I mention who the individuals are, we anticipate that it has to be posted in the Federal Register, that the first convening of this committee will occur. We are hoping around the middle part of December, right before the holidays. If we cannot make that happen in time, it will probably happen in January. So the first one will be virtual, but we anticipate the subsequent ones will be, knock on wood with everything going on with the pandemic, that they will be in person. I did want to mention, so the names of the committee members, the initial committee members include Adam Archuleta, who represents the IHS area. Again, these are the 12 IHS areas. Adam Archuleta, Jack Austin Jr., who is actually the Vice Chief of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Justin Dupree, who is a council member from the Assiniboine Sioux Fort Peck Reservation in Montana. He represents Billings. Menajah Hill is from Standing Rock. He's a tribal veterans representative, and he's representing the Great Plains area. Reen Kapiko is representing the Native Hawaiian community. Nicholas Lewis is representing the Portland area. Kevin Meeks is representing the Oklahoma City area. Galen Minkle is representing Bemidji. Angela Pratt, who's the speaker of the Osage Nation Tribal Council, is representing the Nashville area. She's also the co-chair of the NCAI Veterans Committee. Chief William Smith, Chief Bill Smith, he's representing Alaska area. Eugene Gino Talis is representing Phoenix, and Ted Tenorio is representing the California area. Sonia Tetnowski is representing the Urban Indian Health Organization community, and Fred Urbina is representing Tucson area. I believe he's the Attorney General for the Pascua Yaqui. And then James Wehrlein is representing the Navajo area. Again, I believe that, there were requirements that at least half of the committee be comprised of veterans. I think all of these individuals are veterans, and they met a certain criteria that was prescribed in the law and in the Federal Register notice. And again, the evaluation team ranked their applications and made recommendations to the Secretary. I think that most, if not all of these individuals receive a recommendation from a tribal leader and or a tribal organization. So this is really it's also very exciting, as this is really the first time a committee like this will have a front row seat to really communicate and engage in building relationships with the VA secretary and other senior VA leaders twice a year. These meetings will be held, and we think that this is really going to represent a really powerful relationship and direction in terms of policy and making sure that our Native veteran population, that VA is getting it right, and they're going where Native vets are going, and they're making it so that services and benefits are accessible and any barriers to access are being removed. So again, we're very excited about this and look forward to sharing more information in the near future. A couple of other things I want to touch upon that are important. There was legislation that was enacted also around this time, about in the last 9 months, starting January 5th, which I don't think VHA is going to be able to meet that deadline. It's probably going to be implemented the middle of next year, but it will be retroactive. Veterans who are American Indians and Alaska Native will no longer be subject to any co-pays for VA care. Of course, they'll have to be enrolled in VHA healthcare, but they will be in a similar category as veterans who are catastrophically disabled, and they will not have to make co-pays for their care. I think that the spirit of this legislation was basically so that the deal that AIAN, American Indian Alaska Native Veterans, would receive for healthcare would be same or consistent with the deal that they receive for healthcare from the United States government as when they're seen or receive care from Indian Health Service or tribal health programs, which that care does not come with a copay requirement, very broadly stated. So that's something that's really going to be quite a change. It's something that's on the horizon in the very near future. Next slide, and I'll try to wrap up and jump here soon. And I think it's a little blurry again, but I can speak to it. I'm not sure if the audience can see. Great. So reimbursements to the Indian Health Service and purchase referred care. So VA has been purchasing care from all IHS direct service sites and 115 tribal health programs for going on 10 years now. Something that VA does not reimburse is purchase referred care or specialty care. Those are discussions that are going to be moving forward in the very near future. Another thing, quick update to touch base on, is there are 41 urban Indian organizations that provide healthcare services to Indians living in the urban community. 2 of those, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, have a reimbursed care relationship with the VA. And what does that mean? That means that those healthcare organizations receive funding for care they provide to veterans who are enrolled in VHA healthcare. So there has been legislation that now allows the VA to enter into relationships with the remaining urban Indian organizations who provide healthcare services. When we've talked to urban Indian organization program managers, it's very often that not very many of them have any relationship with the VA. And we think that this is going to really open a lot of doors to relationship building and accessing services and benefits for the urban Indian veteran community that perhaps these organizations previously did not have an existing relationship. VA state veterans homes grants. I think most folks may be aware that there are state veterans homes that have criteria that's set forth by the different states. Tribal governments can now compete for these state veteran home grants. And that is something that's in the process of undergoing regulation change. And there have been some tribes that have expressed interest in participating in that program. Next slide, and I think we're winding down. So the VHA IHS MOU, the big book, if you will, policy document that has been signed, that was also signed at the very beginning of October. So there is a new MOU policy document that outlines how the two agencies will work together to reach and serve Native veterans. And next slide. So these are items, again, on the horizon, and I hope that these slides can be shared with the audience. Again, there's a lot going on. Right now, there's a nation-to-nation dialogue going on regarding the COVID-19 pandemic response. That's between federal agencies and tribes. This slide needs to be amended. There's a two-day White House Tribal Nation Summit. It's going to be November 15th and 16th. I believe that's a Monday and a Tuesday. The secretary also co-chairs the health subcommittee of the White House Council on Native American Affairs with the HHS secretary. The VHA Office of Academic Affiliations is going to be sponsoring its 100 VA-funded medical residents who will be doing rotations in IHS and tribal health locations. There's something called a Native American Veteran Journey Map that the Veterans Experience Office created, and it really kind of highlights, they did a lot of interviews with Native veterans, and it highlights kind of the experience, the kind of life experience that Native veterans go through, that I think it's actually very, I was skeptical of full disclosure, but when I saw the final product, I think it's really interesting and can be really informative in terms of customer service for Native veterans. We're happy to share that with you if you have time. The VA Caregivers Program is getting ready to ramp up their outreach to tribal communities and Native veterans and their families to raise awareness of all of the services and benefits that are available through the Caregivers Program, which is pretty awesome. We publish a quarterly newsletter. We just released one in, I think, October 12th. If you need to get on our listserv, let me know and we will add you. And then just finally, so to date, VHA has reimbursed all IHS direct service sites and 115 tribal health program sites close to $150 million to care that has been provided to veterans. So those healthcare locations receive that additional revenue, and they may either turn around and apply it to other, offset other funding shortfalls, or they can turn around and apply it to veteran care. And so with that, next final slide.
It's Stephanie. I know, sure. Thank you so much for joining us. You'll see, I know you have to jump to another event, and you'll see all her contact information here. And for all of those that are participating with us, we really appreciate it. If you all have questions for Stephanie, please put them in the chat and we'll be sure to get you connected to the information that you're seeking. We so appreciate you taking the time to join us today and to share some more information about where the VA is headed, and a huge thank you to those that are going to be serving on the advisory committee with the VA secretary. It's such a great way to celebrate and honor and continue their service. So we're so thankful to you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Well, and now I want to introduce, what we're going to do is take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's happening in our Native American veteran community. And so I'm going to introduce our first panelist, and it's great to see you all. I love the way that you're connecting in the chat. We will figure out the best ways to connect you all and make sure we follow up with the resources and the recording and everything so that you can continue to share, but please continue to network in the chat while we have this event going on. I would like to welcome our next panelist and invite him with us, Matt Brogdon. He's the founder and executive director of Hesperis. He's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, and was one of those unique few that actually commissioned into the United States Army, serving with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Louisiana, Haiti, and Bosnia. He spent 22 years in talent acquisition, retention, and community engagement, recruiting biotech and tech industries, including his current role with Microsoft. He's also a Stand To a scholar from the Veteran Leadership Program, a father of 3, a gay veteran, and an advocate, architect, and consultant for diverse and inclusive corporate cultures. And we're excited to welcome him. He's going to give us an overview of what's happening in our Native American veteran community and a little bit more about what he's doing with Hesperis going forward. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Kelly, thank you. And thank you to Combined Arms for being a convener. for this important topic. I found over the years that not everybody makes it to their own month, not everybody gets a panel or a discussion group. And in the month in which we celebrate veterans, we forget the contributions of all the different groups and all of our different vets, no matter where they come from across the country. I just want to also reach out to Inan and Chauncey, as well as Stephanie. They're going to provide a lot of great information. It's just an honor to be on the same panel with them under the Combined Arms umbrella. Where does Hesperus come from? Where does the idea for this group that serves Native Americans, that is headed by a vet, but not a Native American, where does it come from? I think the idea is that all veterans come from somewhere and they all return home after their service. But the outcomes for veterans, depending on their community, depending on their background, depending on their race or ethnicity, those outcomes and those, the way things work out for veterans is vastly different depending on where you go back home to. I had many talks with folks when I first started discussing Hesperus, and it was about this idea that we were celebrating veterans in mainstream American society and post 9/11. We were supporting them. We were creating and providing so many different programs and aid, but that the scene had not changed much on reservations and in tribal communities for Native vets, that the resources were not available for them. And that at the end of the day, when you're 2 hours from Phoenix or 3 hours from Albuquerque, or in central Montana, an hour from the border with Canada, that sometimes all of that goodwill and outpouring of support can seem very, very distant indeed. And so we founded Hesperus last year in order to support the Native American veteran and Native American communities through education, employment, and technology. Next slide, please. I think that biggest idea to take away is that we are focused on supporting the Native American veteran today. And I have a mission as executive director to talk about broadband connectivity and skilling in terms of employment and education. But quite honestly, where I spend most of my time is educating mainstream audiences on the state of the Native American community and specifically Native American vets today. There's a profound lack of information out there and a huge amount of ignorance, where most Americans view Native Americans in the past. We view them in terms of a historical legacy from the 1880s. We tend to think of Native Americans as people in movies and TV shows. We don't tend to see Native Americans today. Why is that? Because a lot of our Native Americans live on and around reservations. They're removed from urban life, and they are not necessarily part of the mainstream pop culture conversation that we have every day around major league sports, music, art, and entertainment. But we're here, and we at Hesperus are here to talk about the state of these vets, their contributions, and how we're helping them today. Everyone here can see the slide that's in front of them. I want to show the numbers about just how many Native Americans and specifically Native American vets there are. There are about 166,000 Native vets that are alive today. And there are over 31,000 active duty Native Americans serving in all of the armed forces. If we look at how many Native Americans claim full-blooded membership as a Native American, we're looking at about 3 million, and then almost double that who claim one or both parents as Native American. We're not talking about people that have ancestry. We're talking about people that claim it as one of their two primary ancestral backgrounds. And then most importantly, as Stephanie has already mentioned, there are 574 federally recognized Indian nations. These are known by different names. And then 229 Alaska Native communities, each very different and very unique, that exist today. So I want to use this slide to help educate and talk about what does this look like today? What does this community look like today, and how are they influencing service, our military, and our modern culture? Next slide, please. So one thing I learned very quickly in the Native American community, both personally through my partner, as well as the guest of many people across many different communities, is the sense of the warrior tradition and the warrior ethos in Native American culture. Now, I'm not a member of the Native American community, but one thing I've been profoundly struck by is the difference between the Native interpretation of a warrior and our Western interpretation of a warrior. The Western interpretation tends to be one that's more of a fighter. And what I've really been struck by, and it was mentioned in the movie, is that the Native American warrior is the protector of the land, the protector of his or her people, traditions, family, and community. I think what's really important is that we ask, and I've had this conversation with many people, why do Native Americans fight and sign up to serve for a government that has had such a strong influence over their history? And by that, a government that tried to wipe them out. I think what is important is you have to understand the warrior tradition, this idea of protection and fighting, to understand why military service is so important in the community. And if we look at these statistics, you can see here how those numbers play out. Before citizenship was granted, over 12,000 Native Americans served in World War I. Citizenship wasn't granted to Native Americans until 1924, which is astounding to me. If we look at the numbers for Native Americans that served out of a total of 350,000 in the United States in the 1940s, it's an astounding statistic of the per capita contribution for Native Americans in World War II. We know a lot about the legacy of the code talkers, but we tend to assume that it's only the Navajo tribe that provided code talkers. There were over 30 tribes that provided code talkers. And earlier this year at Hesperus, we were able to interview Thomas Begay, a member of the Navajo Nation, and one of the only 4 surviving code talkers left from World War II. This next statistic astounds me, especially in light of everything I've said. 90% of the 42,000 Native Americans serving in Vietnam were volunteers. Guys like Joe Podlasek, who's on the chat string, and others can really attest to this statistic, but we tend to think of Vietnam as a largely draft army. But if we look at the numbers who came from the Native American community, we can see that story is flipped on its head. And then if we look at our per capita numbers for the post 9/11 generation, we can see where Native Americans serve in terms of their contribution versus the rest of us in mainstream American society, as well as other veteran groups. Incidentally, the cohort that serves at the highest rates are Native American women. They serve at higher rates than any other group by race or sex in the United States. And then lastly, I want to point out Lori Piestewa, who's the first Native American woman to die in combat serving in the U.S. military, and the first woman in the U.S. military killed in the Iraq War. She has a mountain named after her in Arizona, but I think it's important to understand the recency of how these folks have served and are continuing to serve in society. And that's why we at Hesperus serve them. Next slide, please. So what do we do at Hesperus? Hesperus is focused on education, employment, and technology. We work with a lot of partners in order to deliver pathways to employment through technology for members of tribal communities, including veterans. After they've served, they come back home and they say, I want to be part of the 21st century economy. I want to participate in a tech job, but I don't necessarily see how I can do that from Globe, Arizona, or Window Rock, or Billings, Montana. How do I do that? And so the Hesperus started the Summit program, and the Summit program is our tech program for IT training for Native American, Alaska Native veterans, consisting of this IT skilling program that supports you not only from an academic perspective, but also through a 360-degree job training and job support network. And then we engage our employer partners to provide full-time work opportunities, as well as other umbrella organizations such as Onward Opportunity to support your search. That's a national opportunity, and this program is virtual. Please reach out to us if you're interested. We'll also have a youth STEM program in partnership with the United States Military Academy at West Point that will support STEM education workshops for middle schoolers on reservations in Native school districts. One of our conditions with the Military Academy was that we need to serve Native Americans where they are. And we want to make sure we continue to do that, whether it's youth, veterans, or it's going to be adult learners. Lastly, we're going to partner with the Institute of Veterans and Military Families to do an entrepreneur boot camp for veterans for Native Americans only. And we're going to launch that next year. We'll have a week-long in-person program where we support these entrepreneurs who are interested in starting and continuing businesses in tribal communities, and we'll support them with our employment and our entrepreneurial partners and provide all costs paid for, including getting out to the program. So please stay tuned and stay up to date with our website. I think the most important thing that I really want to focus on is that, you know, Stephanie mentioned it in her talks. I know we'll talk about it with the other organizations that are on here, but we need to meet the veteran where they are. We need to meet them at home. And Hesperus, as well as a lot of other great organizations, is out there trying to focus on supporting our veterans, in this case, Native veterans, where they are, and to allow them the opportunity to use all their benefits, but also to get the support that the rest of us out here in suburban San Diego, like where I'm from, or Chicago or Washington, D.C., all those benefits and all those programs that are available in urban and suburban areas, we want to ensure that we're not forgetting our tribal and rural brother and sister veterans. So it's important for us as we become more competent and we search out partners such as Wounded Warrior Project, who we're happy to announce we became one of their community partners yesterday, that we're trying to bring other folks out to the reservation, just as we're trying to bring the folks that have served and are back home in tribal communities. We're trying to bring them the opportunities that the 21st century digital economy and education allow for them. So it's been a privilege and an honor to be on this panel. Thank you again to Kelly for inviting me. And I look forward to further discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. We so appreciate you joining us and also just leveraging your background and expertise to really bridge the gap and the divide, and being such a great advocate for minority communities, but especially our Native American veterans. And so many great partners that you mentioned, like IVMF and Wounded Warrior Project and America's Warrior Partnership, that really can help to continue to work together. But can't forget about the critical work that's happening in communities across the ground and across the nation. And so just thrilled for your expertise. If you'll go to the next slide, please. It's my honor to introduce, we're going to talk and share a little bit more with you about our Chauncey Parker, who's the Executive Director of the Rocky Boy Veterans Center. He is from North Central Montana and an enrolled member in the Chippewa Cree tribe of the Rocky Boy Indian Reservation. He's an Army veteran who's serving in Iraq from 2004 to 2009 and in Afghanistan in 2012. He has 20 years of service and currently serving and continues to serve in the Montana Army National Guard. Before he was part of the VBOC up there, the Veterans Business Outreach Center, as the program director. And we are just thrilled to have him with us and share his expertise. If you go to the next slide, I think we're going to begin just by sharing a little bit more about his work with a short video. So thanks for joining us, Chauncey. And once this is over, we'll just turn it over to you.
The Rocky Boy Veterans Center incorporates various areas. We provide everything from social services, assistance with unemployment, to housing, to where even the center itself helps those veterans who may even be contemplating things like suicide. Anything that really can affect a veteran's life is where we come in and where we help. So on behalf of the Rocky Boy Veterans Center, I would ask you to help us in our support of our veterans and help us support those who have given so much of themselves to make not just our own community better, but our community as Americans better. Become part of our mission of supporting our veterans, giving back and assisting those who have given so much on our behalf. Find out more about the programs that we're offering, or more about our mission and what we're doing for our veterans here in Rocky Boy. You can visit us online at rockyboyveterans.org, or visit us on Facebook at Rocky Boy Veterans Center, or even just give us a call. Our phone lines are always open, 406-395-5610. We look forward to hearing from you.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to thank Kelly and Combined Arms for inviting me to speak here on the panel. I'd also like to thank all of you here and all of you representing the different organizations for supporting our American Indian veterans, as well as wanting to find out more information about our American Indian veterans. So with that, I will give a little brief history on my organization, the Rocky Boy Veterans Center, what we have been providing and what we've been doing here in Montana, and providing services to our veterans. So next slide, please. So the Rocky Boy Veterans Center, our mission is veterans helping veterans for a better future. Is our basis for action, serving and honoring our Rocky Boy veterans and service members. The Veterans Center vision is to become the hub for veterans, service members, and their families to receive all benefits they have earned in their service to the Chippewa Cree people and to our nation. So we basically provide services that affect the quality of life of our veterans. This is a quick rundown on our organization. We are located on the Rocky Boys Indian Reservation in north central Montana. We are about 40 miles just south of the Canadian border, so we're in a very rural part of Montana. Our largest urban center is about 100 miles to the south of us, of Great Falls. So there are very few services available to veterans as a whole. And so just trying to capture those services and provide them to our Native veterans is definitely been an issue. But again, like I said, the purpose of our organization is to provide that service to our Native American veterans. And this is just a quick snapshot of our organization and what we've been working on the past couple of years. So we started the Veterans Center here back in 2015. In 2016, we received our nonprofit 501c3 recognition. That following year, we were able to start some of our programs and expand them. By starting our Veteran Support Services program, which provides the majority of our services to American Indian veterans here in Rocky Boy, as well as the local area. In addition to that, to provide that funding to continue our mission, we've started a money service business that provides us a small revenue source to continue to provide those services to our veterans. Just because due to the fact that we are a nonprofit organization, we are not an affiliate of our local tribal government. We do a lot of our work basically on our own, but in collaboration with some of our tribal government departments, some of the other departments, local resources that can provide services to our Native veterans. In 2018, we were able to bring on our warrior advocate, who is our main caseworker to assist veterans in overcoming and helping them through their various issues and challenges that they face. As well as we were able to start our Veterans Transitional Employment Program. So this particular program, we were able to assist our unemployed veterans transition from unemployed status to an employed status. We provide temporary employment to them for a period of 6 months and slowly transition them into the workforce. In 2019, we started some strategic planning for a veterans complex here that would provide services not just for Rocky Boy veterans, but American Indian veterans here in north central Montana, as well as Indian veterans in the state. We've begun a lot of this planning. We were a sub-program of the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program in 2019 as well. Unfortunately, just due to the current COVID pandemic, a lot of our planning, a lot of our development was put on hold as we were responding to the current health crisis, the current COVID crisis, and providing just basic needs, basic essentials to a lot of our veterans here in Rocky Boy and within our service area. So our primary focus population is, of course, our Chippewa Cree tribal veterans and service members. Our secondary focus is American Indian veterans living within north central Montana, but we also provide services to any veteran that asks for that assistance, in recognition of the veteran status that we have, not just as Native people, but for all people. We recognize that, and so we welcome any veteran that needs assistance. We will provide that help too. So our current service area is our own reservation here in Rocky Boy, as well as the Fort Belknap Indian Reservation, the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, as well as the 9 adjacent Montana counties to those reservations. And so within that area, we have approximately 2,500 veterans living within this area that we provide those services to. So in providing these services, we've come up with a number of challenges. Of course, the big one is our rural location. As I mentioned, we're about 100 miles north of the main urban center. And so trying to have those services and providing those quality of life services is definitely a challenge due to our location. Another challenge that we face is, of course, the economies on our reservations. Many of our reservations have pretty poor economies, and employment is a huge issue. For example, for us, for our own Native population, unemployment can be a huge issue, in that, especially during the winter times, due to seasonal jobs, some of our employment rates amongst our veterans can reach upwards to 80–85%. So that is a huge impact on being able to provide that service, as well as the housing that we can provide. And again, like I said, it's very difficult to access these services and provide these services to our veterans just because of our location. Of course, there's always, funding, trying to find those funding revenue and those streams to be able to provide those services to veterans is a big challenge.
I think that's maybe your last slide there, Chauncey. I know we redesigned them for you, so thanks for rolling with it. We so appreciate learning more about your incredible work and the way that you're serving the people in all of the greater Montana area. And so just really appreciate the work that you're doing. We're going to move over at this point, and I like to welcome Aynan, who is the program lead for the Diné Nazba Partnership, a program of America's Warrior Partnership. We're just so grateful to her for joining us and talking to us a little bit more about Navajo Nation. She's a Navajo Native American and Army veteran who served during Operation Enduring Freedom and discharged from the military in 2012. And she's now, again, the program lead for the Navajo Nation. So Aynan, if you'll join us on the screen, we'd love to hear a little bit more about the work that you're doing for Navajo Nation.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Aynan Johns. I am the community program lead for Diné Nazba Partnership, and it's a program under America's Warrior Partnership. So what we do is we go back out into our communities here on the Navajo Nation, and we go and provide services and help and trying to connect our veterans back to proper resources, so then that way we can further, and well, not further, but yeah, I guess further. I'm trying to look for the right word, to improve the quality of life for that veteran. You know, we want to, from our standpoint, we would like to meet and leave the veteran off from where we found them, better off from where we found them. So we try to get them connected to proper resources out here in the Navajo Nation. And one of the challenges during the COVID that happened, and I was speaking on this panel this past week about that. So one of our common barriers here with the Navajo Nation is that most of our veterans sometimes have unreliable transportation. So what we did was the barrier for that was we had provided food boxes going around the Navajo Nation and just giving out food boxes, whether it may be if the veteran needed that for their home or if they were giving it to another person. Sometimes we came across some veterans like that. But at the end, if the veteran was not able to pick up those boxes, what they did was we went ahead and connected them back with the commander and told them, hey, well, is it okay if you can pick this up on behalf of your veteran and go ahead and deliver it for them? And they were more than welcome to do that. So that was one of the things that we went ahead and did. And we overcame that and connected the veterans to those proper resources in order to further assist them. And so that's just one of the, I guess, the challenges or one of the barriers that we went ahead and did. And then also, one of the other things that we noticed here at Diné Nez-Perce Partnership was that we took into account that some of our veterans here in the Navajo Nation were unaware about collecting compensation. And so we went ahead and connected them with proper resources, teamed up with the VA regional office out from Albuquerque, making those referrals happen there with them. So it was really great trying to combat certain things that we came across. And one of the other huge things that we're challenging right now too is the housing. The housing is one of the things that we took into account too from Diné Nez-Perce Partnership. It was, we seen that, and right now we're looking to find renovations to get those renovations done to some of those homes that were that have withered away as the years went by. So we're trying to help out our veterans as best way as we possibly can. So it just depends on what the veteran is seeking, what kind of resource they're looking for, and we try to connect them back to that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak a little bit about what some of the experiences and some of the things we had to face as the certain challenges. I know we're trying to overcome them. Of course, we're still working through some of these challenges that come to us as part of being on the Navajo Nation. But I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this panelist, and I'll go ahead and turn it on back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Ainan.
Yeah.
We're so appreciative of you and glad that you're leading the way at the Diné Nez-Perce Partnership under America's Warrior Partnership and all the great things that we can do to be connected. And that's really what we want to do here today. And like I said, it's our honor and privilege. And we're just so grateful to the leadership of Matt and Chauncey and Ainan and the great work that so many of you are doing to advocate on behalf of all of our veterans. We want to close out some of this opportunity. There's been many great questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to follow up with you and make sure we're providing ways for you to connect. But if you'll put up the slide, we want to just take a minute in a way to celebrate and close out this opportunity and honor a great U.S. Navy veteran. So Charles Chuck Sams III is awaiting Senate confirmation and will soon become the first Native American veteran to lead the National Park Service. He's an enrolled member of the Cayuse and Walla Walla tribes, and which is part of the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. He's a U.S. Navy veteran. And we're just so thrilled and excited and waiting to celebrate his Senate confirmation. So thank you for your service, sir. It's an honor for all of us to cheer you on. We'd love to hear your feedback. And I know there've been so many questions, but if you all would just take a minute to snap that QR code that we're going to put up on the screen and give us your feedback and just let us know how we can continue to connect you. Again, it's our honor. We thank all of you for being advocates or for serving our country in celebration. We're so happy and thrilled to be able to celebrate this great community. I know one of our panelists said, right, our Native American veterans sign up at a greater percentage than any other minority population. And it is without them and their service to offer incredible contributions to this great nation. And Matt said it so well in the beginning, right? The protectors of traditions, family, and community. So thank you to all of our veterans, especially our Native American community. We celebrate you, we honor you, and we appreciate and are so grateful to your service. Thank you all for taking some time to spending with us today, and to our incredible panelists for sharing a little bit about their work. We look forward to celebrating throughout the month of November and highlighting the great stories of many of you who've joined us today. Thank you so much, everyone.